Marcellus Barnes is in the transfer portal, and it's a big loss for the Orange.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And then, folks, on today's mini podcast, we are going over the breaking news from last night. And no, I am not going to talk about Juan Soto going to the New York Mets because we had even bigger news on the Hill. Okay, yes, even bigger than Juan Soto signing a $765 million contract with the New York Mets. All right, even bigger than that. And that is, well, it's kind of unfortunate news, honestly, for the Syracuse Orange football team. Around midnight last night, cornerback Marcellus Barnes announced that he is entering the transfer portal, which, by the way, guys, that opened up at midnight. So the transfer portal officially open. Players can sign whenever now. It's official. Okay? This is a big loss for the Orange. Marcellus Barnes, he was a four-star recruit in 2024. He was a top 200 player, I want to say, on On3. He was one of the best recruits in Syracuse's 2024 recruiting class, and he played as a true freshman. Yes, that's right. He got on the field in football as a true freshman, which is not easy to do. Barnes played in 5 games this season, so whatever team that gets him will only have him, in theory, for 3 years because he played one more game than his red shirt. However, that was because of injury. He would have played the entire season. In the first 2 games of 2024, he battled with Devin Grant as the starter. But you can start to see him kind of separating himself after those 2 games. And in the 3rd game of the year against Stanford, and I don't want to relive that game, it's like the only blemish on Syracuse football season from last year. He was following Alec Iomanner, their star receiver, around in the beginning portion of that game. But then he was knocked out due to injury. So he missed time. He came back after missing 3 games. He returned for Pitt. He played against Virginia Tech the following week. And then he got hurt again. And then he was out for the season. This is a big loss for the Orange because he was slated to be a starting corner. He was a blue chip 4-star recruit that played as a true freshman. He only played in 5 games, but that wasn't because the staff was holding him out. That was because he was injured a couple of times. It was unfortunate. But he looked like he was going to be the number 1 cornerback on Syracuse football in 2025. Now he's in the portal. Now, I should say with a grain of salt that, look, just because someone's in the portal doesn't mean they can't come back. It doesn't mean they can't come back. However, I saw this online, and I'm sorry I'm blanking on who it was. It reminds me a lot of Deuce Chestnut. When Deuce Chestnut played, I think, a couple of years with Syracuse, was a really good player for 2 years as a corner, and then he transferred to LSU. Now, eventually, he did come back after that 1 season with LSU, and he played for the Orange this season, and I assume that he is going to stick around with us for another year before he runs out of eligibility. But it's very much like that, where Marcellus Barnes was a blue chip prospect, actually a much higher recruit than Deuce Chestnut was, plays as a true freshman, was pretty good while playing, just dealt with injuries, and then decides he wants to enter the transfer portal. And I don't blame him for doing that, by the way. This is no shot at him whatsoever. I thank Marcellus Barnes for the games that he played in and for giving it his all, and I wish him nothing but the best. And who knows? Best case scenario, he's back with Syracuse. But this is a big loss because now the Orange are going to need a starting corner. It went from kind of a need, right? We've talked about the transfer portal needs in the or early on in this offseason. Maybe it was a couple weeks ago by now. The early transfer portal needs. Now cornerback is a big need. So coming up, is there an alternative? What should Syracuse do now that Marcellus Barnes is in the transfer portal? That's coming up next on the Locked On Syracuse podcast. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite, and right now you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com, plus store an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with a thoughtfully curated gift package featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. We finally know what bowl game and who Syracuse football is going to be playing in said bowl game. We found out yesterday. The Orange are going to play in the Holiday Bowl against Washington State on December 27th. FanDuel has released the odds. FanDuel currently has the Orange as 6.5-point favorites. Now, I imagine that line is going to dipsy-do a lot in the next couple of weeks with the transfer portal, player opt-outs. We don't know who is going to play, but those are the preliminary odds. So I guess FanDuel is giving Syracuse a pretty decent chance of winning their 10th game of the season, which is a big deal for this program. Hopefully they can get that 10th win. What do you think of those odds? Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Former 4-star recruit Marcellus Barnes announced last night that he is in the transfer portal. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse. I just want to let you know that I wish Marcellus Barnes nothing but the best. I think the team that gets him is going to be getting a really good player, in theory, for the next 3 seasons because he's got 3 years of eligibility left. As far as what this means for Syracuse, as I teased, they are going to need a starting corner. It went from they kind of need one to now they definitely need one. Here's why. Their 2 starters, when everyone was healthy this past season, which wasn't often, and that's just how football is, but when everyone was healthy, Syracuse's 2 starting corners were Marcellus Barnes was one of them. Clarence Lewis was the other one. Now, Clarence Lewis, I think, caught a lot of flack at times this season. He was all ACC, guys. Clarence Lewis was pretty good for this team. The Notre Dame transfer, I think, exceeded my expectations as an all-conference caliber corner. He was, I think, honorable mention. He's out of eligibility, so he can't come back. And Barnes is now in the portal. So who do we got left? I can't read off every single corner on the depth chart for Syracuse, but I came up with at least 3 of them. You got, by the way, these years I'm about to throw around now are what they're going to be next season. That leaves redshirt junior Jaden Bellamy, sophomore Davian Kerr, and redshirt junior Greg Delane. Those, I think, are the top 3 corners. You definitely need a starting corner now. You definitely need one. It's one thing to say, okay, we'll roll into next season with Jaden Bellamy as the number 2 corner. I don't know if he's a number 1 corner, and I think you're downgrading, especially if in an ideal world, he was really your cornerback 3. So you need one. We've established that. As far as an option, I'll name the obvious one for you guys. If you guys haven't been tracking on social media, maybe it's not so obvious, but for maybe more of the diehards that are really following the transfer portal closely, you know who I'm gonna talk about, okay? It's probably, redshirt junior Julian Humphrey from Georgia. It makes so much sense. Humphrey was a significant player at Georgia. I think he played 10 games this past season. He might have started all 10 games. This is not someone who's coming from Georgia who was like a reserve player and then all of a sudden, some small school, I don't want to call Syracuse a small school, but you get the idea, scoops him up and makes him a starter. And sometimes, by the way, that can work. I mean, that's what the Orange literally just did with Jackson Meeks. It turned out pretty well. I mean, Jackson Meeks didn't play a lick at Georgia when he was there for 3-4 years. Comes to Syracuse, all ACC. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but Julian Humphrey, there is that added bonus of the fact that when he was at Georgia, he was a significant player there. And obviously, there is a connection. There has to be for a guy like Julian Humphrey, who surely is going to be highly sought after in the portal. Fran Brown, he was the defensive backs coach at Georgia. He coached Julian Humphrey. And my apologies, Humphrey played in 11 games, had 4 passes defended. Oddly enough, he's never had a career interception in 23 games. But you got the Fran Brown connection right there from Georgia. So hopefully those two had a good relationship, and at least Julian Humphrey would consider coming, because now there's a heightened need. Because Marcellus Barnes is in the portal and you don't have Clarence Lewis coming back. If I'm Syracuse, if I'm their management team, I'm going after Julian Humphrey. It's as simple as that. Because now corner is a big need. I wish Barnes nothing but the best. I hope he finds a school that he's happy with. I think he's a Tennessee guy, so I think it's possible maybe he wants to go closer to home. It's a theory that I have, and I don't blame him if that's the theory, or I don't know what the theory is, but I'm happy for him. I hope he finds what he's looking for elsewhere. But Syracuse now needs to pivot, and I think a guy like Julian Humphrey from Georgia with the Fran Brown connection makes a lot of sense. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think it's a big deal that Syracuse is most likely going to lose Marcellus Barnes? What do you think about potentially pivoting to Julian Humphrey? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. As far as what is coming up on the podcast in the future, I am not going to guarantee this mini podcast, okay? I'm not going to guarantee it, but sometime this afternoon, I may or may not drop another mini podcast about Caden Salter. And that's because we got some breaking news last night. That was maybe a good breaking news. And that is that he's visiting Syracuse. He's visiting Syracuse according to On3. So we'll discuss that potentially, the other teams that are vying for him, and also the potential character issues. Someone brought that to my attention. I missed it when going over it, and that's my mistake. So that's another reason why I might do a mini podcast, because I feel like I spent 30 minutes on him yesterday, and I left a crucial detail out. So I might have to put that in there. That could be coming up sometime early this afternoon. I will guarantee you, though, at 6 p.m. Eastern, we're talking about another transfer portal quarterback option, another guy that has been linked to the Orange. Okay? I think you guys might know it. The hint is he's from Texas A&M. So that's what's coming up next on the Locked On Syracuse podcast. I'm Jackson Holzer. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. If you really liked it, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. And everyone, take care.